Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining tonight's Tuesday Talks webinar. My name is Susan Brown, and I am the Associate Director of Parent and Family Programs. It is our pleasure to be hosting tonight's webinar, Year in Review, Looking Ahead with Parent and Family Programs. Tonight's webinar will include a reflection from a current undergraduate student, Jack Dalton. He will be here sharing tips on how your student can best engage with the Northeastern experience. The webinar tonight will be interactive. We have set aside some time throughout the presentation to gather your feedback and answers to a few questions. Please provide feedback using the Q&A pod on the right side of your screen. We ask that you please refrain from posing personal questions pertaining to your student. So let's begin our agenda tonight. So tonight we're going to talk about the year in review and some new developments on the campus. We're going to be talking about planning for next year. We're going to ask for some of your feedback. It's all about you. And then Jack is going to talk about his time here at Northeastern and student reflection. So this is one of our last webinars for the semester that we've done. We've done a lot of webinars throughout the fall and spring semester, and we just kind of wanted to cover some of the things that have happened over the past year. One, President Ayoun emphasizes higher education's obligation to help students become robot-proof. In his new book, Robot Proof, President Ayoun outlines a plan for reinventing higher education in the age of artificial intelligence. His thought-provoking book has been praised for offering an optimistic and practical view of what higher education can do to prepare the next generation. That was one of our highlights this year. Another one was we became Beanpot champions, and those of you who don't know what the Beanpot is, we play various colleges, BU and BC and Harvard, for a battle of a beanpot, and actually this is the first time we won this year in 30 years, so it was very exciting. Congratulations to our men's hockey team. And then just past week, April 12th, was our second annual Giving Day. It is a program during the time where gifts can be made. That day we raised over $700,000, thanks to our parents, alumni, partners, and friends, and the generosity of our faculty and staff. So those are some highlights of the past year that we're very proud of. And here are some other ones that are going to be coming have happened. One is our commencement speaker is Amy Mullins. For those of you who have graduating seniors, I do want to take this time to congratulate you. I know it's quite an accomplishment for your students and yourself to be graduating next week, actually. So Amy is an actor in the Emmy Award-winning TV show Stranger Things. She is not only an actress, but a world record-setting sprinter, a double below knee amputee who pioneered the woven carbon filter prosthesis. Amy is also a National Women's Hall of Fame advocate for the societal mindset around disabilities. Her TED Talks have been viewed of over 7 million people. So we're going to be welcoming Amy to the TD Garden North next week, and I'm sure she's going to deliver a great commencement speech. Also, we had two of our co-op students, Carolyn Brime and Madeline Drake. They made co-op history this year. It's always interesting to see what our students are doing on campus because they do spectacular things. So Carolyn and Madeline became the first two students in the world to complete a co-op in Cuba. Carolyn is a third-year human services major, and Madeline is a fourth-year international affairs major. I think they just came back just recently. They were working for the Antonio Nunez Jimenez Foundation, which is a non-governmental organization. They are currently working on cultural preservation projects. And like I said, I think they just recently came back. And in January this year, Northeastern introduced Jeffrey Konya as the next director of athletics. Jeffrey will oversee the university's 18-sport NCAA Division athletic program as well as campus recreation. Campus recreation offers more than 40 clubs and 30 intramural sports programs. We are so glad to welcome Jeffrey to the Northeastern family. And some new other developments. These are some of the projects that are coming our way in the next year or two. I know many of you who have probably visited campus have noticed that we are putting up a new residence hall right next to our public safety division on Columbus Ave. It is a very tall building and it's going up very quickly, and it's a project with the city of Boston. So that's our new residence hall. That's what it will look like in the finish, and it really is quite a sight to see right now. Then our other project on the other side of Columbus Ave, when you go into the parking garage, you may notice we're developing our new Carter Street Stadium, and this is also a project with the city of Boston. Like I said, many of you have been noticed while visiting campus that this is going up. This is a public shared park between Northeastern and the City of Boston. The space will be used to serve Northeastern's clubs and intramural sports programs, as well as community organizations and city programs for the City of Boston. As you see the picture there, we have new tennis courts. It's going to have 2 diamond baseball and softball. And then what isn't showing, it is also going to have a bubble that will go over it so that we can do programs in the weather. So, and I think that will be a great asset to our Northeastern students and to the City of Boston. A lot of younger children in the area play football on it, and the bubble will help them in the wintertime and everything. So that is going to just be a beautiful space for us. So I want to talk a little bit about what really is important to get parents' feedback, and I hope that, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to do some polls, and I hope you will give us a lot of your feedback about the services that we provide to you. Many of the services that we provide, I'm sure you're aware of our Parent Matters newsletter. It comes electronically to you in the fall, and it also comes to you in the spring. It also is posted on our website, our parents' website. In this newsletter, we include important information. We highlight some students who may be on co-op or a faculty member, and we hope to provide you with information that you need. In this issue, we've included information on students when they have to move out of the residence hall and storage facilities and that type of thing. I also hope you have checked out our Facebook page. This is run by the university. I know there are some other Facebook pages out there, but this is Northeastern Parent and Family Programs Facebook page. We hope you will join us. We update it with different happenings on the campus, so it is a good way for you to stay involved. I just want to make sure that you're aware of our Parents Message Board. So that's the address at the bottom of the screen, the northeasternparents.proboards.com. And like I said, this can all be found on our website. The Parent Message Board, for those of you who have not checked it out, it takes about 1 minute to create an account. You just log in information. It's different than the portal. You don't need any approval from your student or anything. But on the message board, what happens is parents will write in questions. You know, I have an apartment that we're trying to sublet, or could someone give me advice on my student's co-op, or my students feeling not involved in Northeastern. What happens is a lot of other parents will answer that question. So if you have a moment, check it out. It really is a resource for you. One of our main functions here in the parent office is to serve as a liaison to you. So we work with a lot of different departments on campus, and here are a list of some of them. I won't name them all. So if you ever call our office and your student has maybe some issues academically or socially, we can work with any of these areas to help provide you and your student a resource. This is some important dates that I just want to have people be aware of for the future. Believe it or not, we are already beginning to plan for the academic year 2019. Classes for the fall semester will start September 5th. Our Parent Weekend name is being changed. It is going to be called Family and Friends Weekend. That date is October 26th and 28th. November 21st to the 23rd is our Thanksgiving recess, and December 14th will be the last day of final exams, and January 7th will be the first day of our spring classes. So those are just some dates for the fall semester looking forward. So planning for next year, as I said, we've done a lot of webinars this past fall. The Tuesday Talks, we call them. We do them on Tuesday nights. So this past year, we have hosted 20 webinars on various topics from co-op, living on campus, global opportunities, how your students can manage stress during finals times. And believe it or not, we have had over 2,500 parents join us for our Tuesday Talk series. As we begin to plan next year, because we do like to plan ahead here in our office, we'd appreciate any future topics that you could suggest. We welcome any suggestions. I think it's important, as I said earlier, for the parents to make any suggestions they have, because we want to provide you with the best services possible. One of the presentations that I've said, and we've kind of held this till the last moment, was getting a student's perspective. That's why we have Jack in here with us tonight to just talk about, I think parents want to hear, what is it really like at Northeastern? And the second part of my question is, what time of day is most convenient? So up on your screen, you'll see various times. We have done most of our Tuesday Talks at 7 to 8 in the evening, and they've been very well received. But we know everybody's on a different schedule. We do record them, as you all know. As I'm looking at the results, it looks like our 7 p.m. is a very popular time slot. All right, thank you for your input. That really is helpful. So we also plan for next year's Friends and Family Weekend. As I said, this is going to be our old Parent and Family Weekend. We are changing the name this year to Family and Friends Weekend. The date will be October 26th to the 28th. Just to give you an overview for those of you who may not have attended during the time, if you do plan to attend, I always tell parents, make your reservations early. During the weekend, what happens is we typically send out information, and a lot of it is electronically, right after the students have moved in. So right after Labor Day, we will be providing you with the full schedule. We're actually putting a lot of the schedule in place now, and we'd like to hear what some of the sessions you'd like to hear. But usually on Friday, the colleges host a reception. We have different sessions on different global opportunities your student can take part in. Housing Services does a session. We do one on co-op. And then in the evening, there's usually a hockey game or a comedy show, or we do an event off campus. And throughout the weekend, there's several different athletic events. Hockey usually is the popular one. And then on Saturday, the president does a welcoming address, a session. And then on Saturday, we typically have a Family Fun Festival, which is held out in Centennial Common. It's a good family event. We paint pumpkins. We have a big barbecue with different specialty foods, hot chowder and fried dough, and we have music. And it's usually a time just to have some time with your students. Even though we want to provide different sessions during Friends and Family Weekend, we also know that you want to spend time with your students. And I just want to add, too, one other thing. If you have a suggestion, whether it be on a webinar or Friends and Family Weekend, you can email us at parents@neu.edu. So now, as I said in the beginning, this office is here because it is all about you. We want to involve you in the process as much as we can. I always feel like if a parent has all the information up front, they're able to help their student more from the time of freshman orientation till the time of graduation. So the more information that we can provide you throughout the year, I think it helps both you and your students. All right. So that was kind of a recap of our office and what we do throughout the year and what we hope we can do for you. At this time, I'm going to introduce Jack. He's been waiting patiently here. Jack Dalton is a third-year student. He is in Bouvet College of Health Sciences, and he is a health science major. He is minoring in psychology and film production, and he has done some work in our office, and he is a student who is very engaged in Northeastern. I see him all over the campus all the time, so I thought he would be a good choice for this presentation. So I'm going to turn it over to Jack. Jack, thank you so much for coming out, especially during finals week, to help us tonight.
I'm happy to. So hi everyone, my name is Jack Dalton, as Susan was mentioning. I'm originally from Western Massachusetts, about an hour and a half outside of Boston. But ever since coming to Northeastern, I've had quite a journey that's not just over yet. I originally came in as a psychology major, but I ended up changing majors to health sciences 2 years in. It was a very seamless process. I'd be happy to talk about that if anyone has questions. But since coming to Boston, I've found myself exploring the city. For the entire 3 years I've been here, I still feel as though I haven't really seen it all yet. I don't think I will in 5 years. I found a lot of different ways to get involved on campus. And I think the best advice I would have for other students that I meet is that the best way to get involved is just to really kind of step outside your comfort zone. Don't be afraid to be awkward. The story I always like to tell is that my freshman fall, I had come to campus and met my roommates. I didn't know anyone on campus just yet, but one of my roommates had been on campus for a few days, so we had met a few friends, and I very sheepishly turned to him one day and said, "Please take me with you." So he introduced me to some of his friends who ended up, they were from Colombia, Argentina, Latvia. He was from Houston, Texas, and I very kind of awkwardly was like, "I'm from Western Massachusetts." So it was the best way to really meet people is to really just get out there, even if you have to force yourself to do that. Those guys are still some of my closest friends now. So through that, I've been able to get involved on campus by kind of exploring new interests that I had and also exploring different options that the university had to offer that I wasn't even aware of when I stepped into the door. So there are a lot of different ways I was able to get involved on campus. Mostly what I found myself working in is, while I am a health sciences major and I'm very interested in pursuing paths in the health sciences fields, I have a lot of interests in creative arts. I loved writing and film production back when I was in high school, and hence where my minor came into play. But on campus, I've been able to get involved in various clubs for theater and film production, as well as some community service organizations, but also a lot of leadership opportunities have presented themselves along the way as well. So one thing I like to highlight is how I've gotten involved with theater on campus. Something that I've noticed about Northeastern is that there is a club for almost anything you can imagine, and within those different areas, there's tremendous diversity in the number of clubs that are offered. So to highlight that concept, I do like to talk about my experience with the theater department. As I said, I'm not a theater major. I have a minor in the College of Arts, Media, and Design, but it's not in theater. But I've still been able to become heavily involved in different theater organizations, whether it's Acting Out, which is our student activism theater group. Every single semester we choose or we we create our own play that's centered around a topic that we want to discuss, a current social issue or the like, and then after each show we have what we call a talk back, where we engage with the audience and talk to them about the messages in the show. I was involved with them my freshman year, but I've also been involved with Silver Mask, which is a different theater organization. It's actually Northeastern's oldest theater club. And they showcase student work in the form of full plays, 10-minute plays, some open mic nights. One really, really cool project that I've recently been involved in is the College of Arts Media Design has actually helped fund a student project, which is a web series that this girl, Nan, that I've met through theater, produced, all about underrepresentation in Boston theater. The department has been incredibly supportive of the project, so it was really cool to see the college really step in and support its students' extracurricular activities. And also everyone on the project, I would say about 90% of us are not theater students. So it was really great to see students from all over the university coming together to kind of just do something that they're passionate about, even though it's not really related to their academic interest. As I've been here, I've found that there are tons of opportunities to develop my leadership skills, really from the moment I walked in the door. My first summer, I became an orientation leader with the Office of New Student Orientation and Parent and Family Programs. So what that meant was that I was meeting with first-year students before they came to the university in the fall and helped them get acquainted with Northeastern and the student life here. It was a great way to not only work on my leadership skills, but it was also a great way to meet a lot of other student leaders and learn how to function within that group. I've also gotten involved with presidential ambassadors. This is run through our university events office, and as a presidential ambassador, what I do with a few other Northeastern students is I attend and help run and facilitate events that are put on through the president of the university's office or for the board of trustees. And I essentially share the Northeastern experience from a student's perspective with all of these people who are really high up there in the chain of command at Northeastern, making all these decisions, and I get to share with them what my experience has been to hopefully inform some of their decisions later on. It's also been a great opportunity for me to network, meeting some of these really impressive people in all different fields throughout all of professional work life. It's been great to hear some of their stories and kind of talk about what my current interests are professionally and academically, and they've really helped me kind of change my path in a way and also find out what I'm really passionate about. It's also incredibly easy to get involved with community service on campus. I'm a part of the founding class of Northeastern's chapter of Alpha Phi Omega, which is a co-ed community service fraternity. One of my favorite things that we have done is we go to the Greater Boston Food Bank in Boston, and if you see that picture in the top left, that's a bunch of us actually packaging up pre-prepared meals as well as some non-perishable food. It's a blast anytime we go there. They have this massive warehouse. They blast like Sirius Top 40 or something, so the music is always a lot of fun. It's a really great experience. Through the orientation office, we were helping build a garden at the North End Church in Boston. So it's been really great to go out into the city and actually make our mark through community service. So it's been incredibly easy to find those opportunities too.
Well, thank you, Jack. That was really informative. Jack, as I had mentioned, is a third-year student here at Northeastern, and he has left a mark here. I know he has it in this office. Jack, you have 2 more years left here at Northeastern. What are you most looking forward to, and what do you think you'll be doing during that time?
Sure, yeah. So like I said, I changed majors, so I'm really excited to get more involved with the health science community, in especially Bouvet, but also just on Northeastern's campus in general. We have a pre-physician assistant society, which is the grad programs that I'm currently looking into, so it's a great way to network myself in that field particularly, as well as learn a lot of really pertinent information about applying to those programs and speaking with students who are in those programs right now. So I'm excited to get involved in more of the pre-professional organizations on campus, but I'm also really excited to keep working at what I've currently been involved in, maybe picking up some more leadership positions, whether it's in theater or maybe with presidential ambassadors. I'm really excited to kind of more rise through the ranks in those organizations as well. But what I always love is at the beginning of each semester we have our student activities fair where every single club and organization comes together and showcases what they're doing and tries to get other students involved. And I think that even though I've been here for 3 years, I still see tons of new clubs every single semester. So I still have a very open mind, and I am always excited to see what new clubs are out there if I can get involved in.
There's so many more. I mean, maybe you could speak a little bit about how a student can even start a club or an organization, too.
Sure. Yeah. So I actually have a good friend who started her own club on campus. So my friend came in, and she really loves board games. But while she found that there were tons of clubs, I think there was like a Dungeons and Dragons club, there were like a bunch of different clubs for tons of different specific games, there wasn't a specific board game club. So she wanted to start that. So it originally just started out as her and about 15 friends who wanted to start this club. They found a faculty advisor, and then boom, they had funding for a club. And now I think she said this year at their first meeting they had over 200 attendees.
Oh, wow.
And it's only been 2 years. So it's
Wow.
incredibly easy to start your own group if it's not already on campus. But I think as we were saying earlier, there's over 400 clubs on campus, so odds are if you have something that you're interested in, we probably already have a club for it.
Mm-hmm.
But a great way to find that is, I believe on our website, that's a great place to find different options through My Northeastern, but also just at these activity fairs are always a great way to kind of find something new. Even though you think you've seen it all, there's always some new club that's popping up.
True. That's good advice, too, not just for first-year students to go back second and third year and go to the activities fair and maybe find something new.
Yeah, for sure.
You never know what your niche is. At this time, we'd like to leave some time for you to ask Jack any questions you have, so we invite you to type any questions you have into the Q&A pod. I'll wait a minute just for some questions. So if you have any questions about Jack and his experience at Northeastern or anything like that, we'll take your questions now. In the meantime, I just thought of a question, Jack. What made you choose Northeastern? I kind of know the answer a little bit because I've worked with you for years, but
Sure.
I know you're from Massachusetts, but what made you look at Northeastern?
Right. So it was kind of a layered decision. What initially attracted me to Northeastern was I really love the city of Boston. To me, I wanted to, I grew up in a small town in suburbia, and I really wanted to experience life in the city, and I found that Boston had a lot of really exciting opportunities. But it wasn't necessarily too large for me to get lost. But I still feel that there are new things to do every single day. Even though I've been here for 3 years, I still haven't experienced all that Boston has to offer. Within Boston, I loved Northeastern's campus. I think it's a perfect blend of that traditional campus feel, but also having the resources of a major city. I always feel as though I could be on Centennial Commons, like soaking up the sun in the peace and quiet, 1 minute, but then seemingly take 5 steps in any direction and suddenly be in the heart of Boston. So it's a great location. The facilities on campus are gorgeous. I've loved everywhere I've lived on campus, even from my freshman year. But then specifically academically to Northeastern, I really found that it's a great culture for students to figure out exactly what they want to do. Northeastern is very flexible in terms of what they allow our curriculums to be. Because of the co-op program and all the research opportunities and study abroad opportunities that we have, the school makes it incredibly easy for you. If you were in my shoes and you wanted to change your major, it's incredibly easy to do that even 2 or 3 years in. And because of the diversity of the different clubs, it's just so easy to explore new interests, but also kind of elaborate into a few different areas that you already know you're passionate about. So there was just a lot of room for exploration, and there was a lot of flexibility on the side of the university that really I was interested in.
So, Jack, you mentioned that you're minoring in psychology, and I think you just said you had one co-op experience?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what that was, and was it related to your major in psychology? And
Yeah, so when I was a psychology major, that was when I was applying for my first co-op. Where I ended up working was actually the Office of Undergraduate Admissions on Northeastern's campus. It's typically rare that students participate on co-op on Northeastern's campus. Mostly people usually leave the university. But I absolutely fell in love with the team that was there and the work that they were doing. I knew at that point in time I was probably going to change majors into health sciences. So while I knew that higher education wasn't necessarily where I was going to go professionally, I thought it was going to be a great opportunity to work on some of those skills that are really integral to almost any professional life. So when I was working with the Office of Undergraduate Admissions, I was essentially in the role of an admissions counselor. So I was speaking with visitors as they came into the visitor center. I was leading information sessions to prospective students. I was answering questions. I was helping with application reading, all that kind of stuff. So it was a really great opportunity for me to work on my interpersonal one-on-one communication skills, but also through presenting those information sessions is a great way for me to work on public speaking. And it was a very high-speed environment, especially when we would see more than almost like 300 or 400 people in one day. The visitor center in our office sometimes got very busy. So all of those I knew were really going to carry over into working in a hospital setting or a medical setting. I feel a lot more comfortable with my ability to speak and relay important information to large groups of people and to people one-on-one. There are sometimes difficult conversations that we have to have with students, so I've had a lot of practice with that. So Yeah, like I said, even though it's not necessarily where I knew I was going professionally, I got a lot out of it, and it definitely carried over into my classes this semester. One class I was taking was communication skills for the health professions, and I felt so comfortable in that class because of my co-op experience. We were learning a lot of different techniques in that class that I had experienced and learned through co-op, so I was already feeling very much set when it came to that class, so it was a really great way to work both on my skills outside the classroom, but it was also nice to bring some of that back to class too.
We have a parent asking you, you said you were involved in a fraternity. Do they have a traditional rush process?
Sure. So at this point, I don't think so, because we just started it. Our first semester on campus was last spring. So we're just about a year old, and at that point we were still petitioning to become a part of the Northeastern community. So we have been completely approved by Northeastern at this point. Right now, what our main mission is getting inducted into the national chapter of APO. So we're still a relatively new organization on campus, and what was really exciting to me was about a year ago, for that first semester, there were maybe about 10 of us that were really dedicated and sticking around every single meeting. But then the first meeting this fall, there were about 50 people there. So that was really exciting. I wasn't expecting that to happen. I actually remember walking by the room and saying, oh, that can't be the APO meeting. There's too many people in there. But then I walked in, and sure enough, that was where I was. So at this point, I think I can't really speak to next year at this point, but I feel like our group is just excited to get new faces every single semester.
We're on a co-op cycle of January to June and then June to December. Maybe you can talk a little bit. We actually did a webinar on this, but I know parents always ask this question. When, if you're going out, let's say you were going to go out in January, when would you start looking?
Sure. So in terms of when to start looking, I know that for your first co-op, they kind of guide you through that process. Because you're taking that intro to co-op course, your co-op advisor kind of tells you when to start looking. My co-op went from July to December, so if I remember correctly, I started sending out applications towards the end of February, if I'm remembering correctly. So the spring cycle, I think, start applying a little bit later than the fall cycle because we're about 4 or 5 months out from that start date. But from what I hear, if you're applying for that January cycle, if you're applying in the fall semester, you start to kind of look a little bit earlier into the semester, especially if it's your second or third co-op, because you're only really 3 months out at that point. Yeah, so I think your first co-op, the co-op advisor kind of tells you when to do that. But your second, your third, I always think that the earlier is the better.
I always get, as working with parents and families, I always get the question, can parents view the co-op jobs in their parent portal jobs? And of course, the answer is no, as much as we'd like to see them. But students view the co-op positions in their portal, right? They see them. That's how they populate into there. And
Yeah. So we have NU Careers, which is our student database, and it lists every single possible co-op position. You can narrow it down by wage. You can narrow it down by if you need a car to get there, the location, the major it's associated with. So you can really kind of cater your search to exactly what you're looking for. And then from there, you send in your resume, and then but after that, communication is solely between you and the employer.
So is it difficult to get a co-op job? I mean, not just you personally, but maybe some of your friends maybe?
Yeah. So typically co-op advisors recommend that you apply to a decent number of co-ops. And that's because while there are so many co-op opportunities, I think generally speaking there are more co-op opportunities than there are students applying for them. Mm-hmm. It's important to keep in mind that if you keep going at it, you definitely will get a position. It just might not be your first choice. And the probability of you getting your first choice will definitely improve as you maybe are applying for your second co-op or your third co-op and you have some more experience. But what I found was that, I got rejected from some positions, and I understood why. I was able to ask them for feedback, and they were actually very helpful in that regard. But I kept going at it. The co-op advisor is a great resource to help you find out maybe where you could improve some of your skills. Maybe your resume could be formatted differently. You can do mock interviews with a co-op advisor, and they're really great resources for you to represent yourself a little bit better in the professional world. So I found that, it was definitely a new process for me. I had never applied for a full-time job before. I still found that there was a lot of guidance through Northeastern to help me find that opportunity.
So we have a parent saying, you've lived on campus all 3 years here. How easy was it to secure a room? And any advice Do you think you'll stay on campus, or do you think you'll spend the last 2 years off campus? What are your thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
sure. So, yeah, I've lived on campus for 3 years now, and over both summers, I've barely left Northeastern's campus since moving here in fall of 2015. I've been very busy. And this coming year and this summer, I'm going to be living on campus as well. I'm not moving off campus anytime soon. I've absolutely loved on-campus housing. The housing selection process can be a little strenuous just because there are so many students selecting housing. So while you are guaranteed a spot, it's definitely important to have a list of alternatives from your number one spot, kind of like co-op in terms of having some backups. But I've also gotten really lucky with roommates too. I've stuck with the same roommates for more than 1 year now. My freshman roommates I lived with again the second year, and then the roommates that I'm living with this year, I'm living with again next year. So it's been very easy to work with them and find different options on campus. I've lived in, obviously, first-year housing. I've lived in upperclassmen standard housing. I've lived in upperclassmen enhanced housing. So there's a lot of different options. And it's really nice to go through them to see all the different options that Northeastern has to offer in terms of housing.
We might want to give a plug. We did a webinar earlier this year with our Co-op Connections office, and they can also help your student if they are moving. I know we have some housing like in New York, and if your student was going out there, they would help them with that process. So, and then, of course, even if your student is staying in Boston to do co-op, they can certainly live in housing at the time.
I did that. I stayed in my on-campus housing when I was on co-op. Because I was working on campus, I had a fantastic commute. Everyone was very angry with me. It was about 1 minute. But I actually found, and I think it's very true, that if you're living on campus when you're on co-op, you're somehow more involved with campus life, even though you're not in classes, which is what you think wouldn't be the truth. But this is the simple fact that you don't have exams to worry about at the end of the day, and once the workday's done, you are free. I felt like I had a lot more time to get involved, so that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's interesting. We have a question about working part-time. I know a lot of the positions on campus are work-study funded, but are you aware of any positions? Do a lot of your friends work a little part-time job, maybe as a TA? Or
Yeah. So I have some experience with this. Originally, most of my positions at Northeastern were through the work-study program. And that was incredibly easy to find. We have a student employment database where you can search for jobs. Much like the co-op positions, you can narrow it down between, is it work-study, is it not work-study, how much does it pay, what kind of office is it with on campus. There's also an off-campus job search through the student employment portal. It was very easy to find those opportunities for me with work-study. The admissions office that I work for has a lot of non-work study opportunities where I have a lot of friends who are involved with Husky Ambassadors, which is our volunteer tour guide organization. There are a lot of ways to take more leadership roles in that organization and get paid for it, and those are non-work study. So I have a lot of friends who do that, and it's a very flexible schedule. I found that in my experience working on campus is really nice because all the different offices are very cognizant of the fact that you have classes and you have exams, so they're very flexible in terms of your work schedule.
And on the students' portal, they can also look for employment opportunities too, so
Exactly.
that's a good thing. A question, we talked a lot, you talked about this, you have an academic advisor, you have a co-advisor, you can work with, your different professors. Is it get a little overwhelming? Or do you suggest you work with all of them? I mean, how does that work for you?
Sure, yeah, I think it's comforting that there are so many different specific resources on campus. Do I speak to some of them more than others? Yes, it just depends on what I need.
Okay.
Yeah. So my academic advisor has been fantastic, especially my health sciences advisor. She's been amazing in terms of helping me navigate the transition between majors and as well as help me develop my schedule. She's been a great resource for me. My co-op advisor was great when I was in that job search process. I know of people who have maybe been facing difficulties when they were on co-op, and it's nice to know that the co-op advisor relationship with the students doesn't end once that class is over. Mm-hmm. I had a friend who felt that she was being underutilized in her co-op position, and she didn't necessarily know how to bring that up to her employer. So she had a conversation with her co-op advisor, and they kind of walked through some possible suggestions as to how to improve things, and then she took that back to work.
That's interesting you say that, because that was kind of my next question to you. So when a student's on co-op, do they get evaluated by their supervisor, and who sees that? And do you get a chance to evaluate the co-op and to help other students?
Yeah, so about 3 times on co-op, as a student, you're responsible for writing some reflections on your position. So that's more on your end to say, like, how you've grown professionally, what you've gained out of the experience, what you're going to take back to the classroom. But at the end of your co-op experience, you do have the opportunity to fill out, or actually, I think it is required, to fill out a survey about what the co-op was like. Did you enjoy it? How was your supervisor? What was the work environment like? The atmosphere at the company? That kind of stuff. And then vice versa, your direct supervisor anyways fills out a performance review about you. And a lot of times they do go over that with you too, so they can talk about, especially in your last meetings with your supervisor, they talk about what you were doing that they loved, ways in which you could improve for your next co-op. And they oftentimes like to hear from you in terms of how they could improve as supervisors. So it's a very open process, which I really liked.
Yes. I'm a huge fan of co-op, past and present, what happens. So I always say that, when I talk with new parents, that I think how important the co-op experience is because it allows your student to go out into the field and say, is this really what I want to be doing? And rather than 4 years later saying, I don't know if I really want to be in a hospital setting, or I don't know if I want to work in an office, that type of thing.
Right, once you have a degree.
Yeah. So that's why I always encourage students and parents to take advantage of the co-op and as many as you can, because I think there is an experience that you will learn from each co-op. I mean, you'll take something away. So just a reminder, if you do have questions, please email us at parents@nau.edu. And I really would appreciate any feedback that you have, whether it be positive or negative, on our webinars or some of the different services. Like I said, we want to provide you with the best experience we can, and we want to provide programming and services that you would find valuable. So please, if you could take a minute and maybe email some suggestions, we would appreciate it. All right, it looks like we're not have any more questions for tonight. This is our contact information. I'll leave it up for a moment, and then, of course, our website. And on our website, it will bring you to all the different past Tuesday talks and all the different communications that we do, our academic calendar. It will also bring you to our Facebook page and then the message board, which I spoke of. The webinar is now ending. I do want to thank you all for attending. Shortly, you will be asked to complete a brief survey to provide feedback on tonight's session, as well as share future topics. You will take that in a moment. And once again, thank you for participating in tonight's webinar. We really do appreciate it, and we look forward to working with you throughout your time here at Northeastern.